Okay, says we should be live. So let's see if this is actually going out live right now. I'm waiting to see if I can see for myself. Yeah, there we go. Oh, let me turn that down so I don't get any echo. Well, welcome to episode 2 of Growth Track. I almost forgot the name for a second. It has been a week for me. Well, thank you for tuning in to episode 2. I hope that you guys enjoyed episode 1. And today, if you've looked at the Messianic Lamb Radio website, today's topic is influence and influencers and finding the right counsel. Hopefully I got that title right. I thought of it, and if I forgot my own title, that's kind of embarrassing, but welcome. And yeah, so today I'm going to talk about what scripture tells us about seeking mentorship or counsel and how to find the right person for us and how to get the most out of each person that we meet. So I want to refer back to, actually, it was last week's Torah portion. It was Teruma, I believe it was last week's. That was, well, I guess that'd be 2 weeks ago. Anyway, my brain's scattered. That was talking about Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, and he imparted some wisdom onto Moses, talking about how to divide up leadership for the tribes, saying that, but you should select from all the people able men, God-fearing, trustworthy, and hating bribes, placing them over the people as commanders of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. So that to me says that there's a section of leadership depending on their ability for reach. So we obviously have people that on television that I'd say that they could reach thousands of people, but for the matter of this, I'm kind of thinking I'm going to lump them into the hundreds because you're never entirely sure how many they're going to reach. So my examples for thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens is think of ancient leadership. So that'd be anybody that's existed for several hundred years, ancient authors, common like Plato or somebody like that to reference because they've been around, their writings have been around, they've been able to affect thousands and a couple of different generations of people. Then for hundreds, I would say that'd be for us in religious belief, anybody like a pastor. Obviously, they're going to have a congregation of usually around 100 to a couple hundred. Obviously, there are also the mega churches that have thousands, but for this general purpose, I'm just going to say pastors are hundreds. 50s, I'm going to say it's anybody that's online as well as anybody that is an author, because not everybody's going to read a book, but I think that's a great thing and great spectrum for those people as well. And then 10s would be anybody that is around as friends and family, anybody that's local that we seek guidance and counsel from, that's just in our general friend group. So in that position, you're going to look for what your position in that chain is. So obviously, since this show is really focused at people that are new to any movement, new believers, you're going to be located in the 10s. Anybody that's up there, if you're doing well, or if you decide to go online, you can lump up into the 50s. But then you need to focus on who are in that chain of leadership that you have. Who are the ancient elders that you're seeking wisdom from, the pastors that you're seeking wisdom from, any online or author presences that you fill your life with, and those in our small friend group or core group of people in the 10s that we hang around with. So I think it's too easy for us in my studying of this topic that we tend to focus on people that are in our like-minded group. And that's good and safe, especially for new believers. When you're coming into a movement and you want to understand more about what you're trying what you're currently in and the path that you're currently on, I think that's a great idea, is to gather people that are like that so that you can just have a better foundation and understanding of the current situation you're in. But I'd say that for all of your life, it's probably very important to surround yourself with people that do the things that you'd like to see. Obviously, in Scripture, we are told that good trees bear good fruit. Now, that tree doesn't have to be, it's not like, I wanted to say a ficus, but a ficus doesn't grow fruit. If you're a lemon tree, you don't have to hang out with lemon trees. You can be over there. Now we're all trees for some reason. This is where my brain is going. But you can't just be a lemon tree and produce good fruit. You can be a peach tree, grow good fruit. A cherry tree goes good fruit. So you don't have to focus on the core area that is like-minded brethren to see good fruit. You can say you're Messianic. It's not unlikely to listen to somebody that's Christian if they produce good fruit. You might not exactly 100% agree on their ideas and philosophies about certain things, but you can take away things from them of how to prosper and grow good fruit and constantly get great things coming from you and constantly producing good. So what is the good fruit would be the next thing. And if we look at Galatians 5:22 through 23, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So if anybody exudes any of those spirits, any of those fruits, I'd say that that's something that we're looking for. Somebody is going to be better at the spirit of love. Somebody's going to be better at the spirit of joy. Somebody's going to have better peace, patience, kindness, and so forth. So to have a better general understanding of all of that, it's better that we surround ourselves with those people that each tackle one of those topics, just because everybody has their own spiritual gifting. And that's something that I'll get in further on a future episode of spiritual giftings. But people are just going to be naturally better at one thing than the other. Take, for instance, prayer. I have several people that are very, very good at prayer. Anytime that they do it, it's just, you know that something is happening from it, and just the way they can hold themselves when they're in the middle of prayer, it just feels better. I'm not so sure of myself when I pray. I tend to be kind of stuttering because it's just not a comfort zone for me. It's not something I'm used to, and it's not just a natural spiritual gift of mine, whereas I might lean more towards faith. So finding those different people. If you want to strengthen your prayer life, go hang out with somebody that is good with prayer. If you want to learn how to find more, like how to experience love and just see the world through a more loving eye, find somebody that has that presence about them. So obviously we need to section out who we're finding our counsel from. And I'm going to break it down into, I think, 3 separate groups. We're going to have our typical one first, and that is the people that are religious. Anybody that we try to find any sort of religious understanding from, or life habits. I have a very good friend and mentor that is somebody that I go to for finances, but he's also very spiritual and can help me see my finances through a spiritual aspect, which is wonderful. And he's a very like-minded brother. And so that helps with that area of my life, that he is also helping me with my finances, but then he can fill me up spiritually and give me that great understanding. Let's see, but the biggest thing that we have to do when we're talking to those kind of people, people that we know that are spiritual, is we have to make sure that they are teaching from Scripture. So if we look at 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17, by the way, I forgot to mention in my last episode that a lot of the all the scriptures I'm quoting from, unless otherwise noted, are going to be from the Holman Christian Standard Bible. That's just the current, that's just the translation that I read and I associate with, and I just like how it says everything. If you choose to go with a different translation, it's perfect. Just make sure that you're kind of cross-referencing, and if you pull up a scripture, just make sure that you're using the Strong's, and that's not the greatest way of understanding the scripture and the root words, but for everybody at home, it's easy. Just go buy a Strong's Concordance and you can look it up, or go online, Blue Letter Bible or anything like that, and make sure you understand what the root of each of those words are, because things just say it a little bit differently, which is something I'm going to tackle here in a little bit. But 2 Timothy 3:16 through 17, all scripture is inspired by God and is profitable for teaching, for rebuking, for correcting, for training in righteousness, so that the man of God may be complete, equipped for every good work. So make sure that whenever you're talking to a brother and he is giving you guidance or counsel, that he can relate it to scripture, or that you can tie that to a scripture somehow. You never want somebody to give you advice that can't be traced back to scripture. If that is a case, then it's probably advice that you shouldn't take. A wise friend of mine once told me, when I first found out I was having a son, that we found out we were pregnant, and of course everybody comes up to you, and the guys and the women are all going to give you advice about what you should do. And he told me, and this is the best advice I got the entire time, was to listen to every bit of advice, hold on to the good stuff, and just let the other stuff kind of go to the wayside. And when you listen to all the advice that people have, and you're not just like, I know what I'm doing, then you're more willing to accept it and process things a little bit differently. But being open to the idea that not everybody's going to give you sound advice just because they're a believer, they went through something, or they also have had children, doesn't mean that they're going to, sorry about that, that's my ring on the table. Doesn't mean that they're always going to give you the most solid advice on that aspect that's actually going to be usable for you. The other thing I want to get into after that is, sorry if this seems a little chaotic. I've had a very busy weekend and try to get this all sorted out, but I'm going to kind of skip here and there. I'll leave the last little bits of this video open if anybody gets in here for maybe some Q&A if I didn't touch on something specifically, or you need me to retouch on it. So we've got our group of people that are around us, that are our scriptural people, they're our fellow brothers, and we want to seek scriptural advice from them. The second group I'm going to go through is a group that most people would tell you to not hang around. Most people, when you first get into a movement, are going to tell you to start to stray away from these people. And that's going to be the non-believers, the people that don't go to church, your friends that are maybe agnostic, maybe even an atheist, people that are out in the world doing very worldly things. Are you going to be seeking scriptural influence from them? No, but you're going to be seeking life counsel and some understanding and maybe some mentors in certain areas, because yet again, you're not looking at what kind of tree they are. They're not rooted in Messianic faith. They're not rooted in Christianity. They're like, if you're in the Christian church, they're not a Baptist or a Catholic. So you're not searching for that and like, well, I only listen to Catholics or I only listen to Messianics. I think that tends to create a unhealthy relationship with other believers. If you go, well, they might have something good to say, but they're not Messianic, so I can't listen to them. They'll have good advice. If they're producing good fruit, they will have good advice that you can throw away the bad, but hold on to that good. And likewise, for our brothers and sisters that, well, I say brothers and sisters, for those around us that are not in the religious movements at all, that are just people that we have coworkers that are around us, because that's something you can't help usually, is who you have as a coworker. I fully understand. I've been in work environments where I had people that were into witchcraft, and I've had people that were just agnostic and other things, people that denied any existence of God. But if they produced any sort of good fruit, it's somebody I wanted to at least chat with and pick their brain. As you could tell from my last one, if you watch my last episode, I'm very business minded. So I like seeking business advice from different people. I'll watch people online that aren't spiritual. They're not religious. At least they don't broadcast that on the internet. They just stray away from it. Some people knowingly aren't doing well in the faith, but they have great advice for things in the business world that are working for them, that they have proven tactics and that have shown to bear fruit from. So let's see. Let me gather my notes. I'm so sorry. There are those people. Let's say you're reading Proverbs 13:20, which if you look up online, if you go to search for scripture about counsel or mentorship or seeking wisdom, you're going to find a lot in Proverbs and a lot in 1 Corinthians. So if this is a topic that's something that you want to learn a lot about, I really recommend diving a little bit deeper into those books, because they have a lot of scripture references in there that is very good. Life bits. I tried to write out all the scriptures and I almost wrote down half the book of Proverbs. So I ended up stopping writing down things and picked a few that I will link in the description after this video goes live. But Proverbs 13:20, the one who walks with the wise will become wise, but a companion of fools will suffer harm. This is a verse that somebody might throw at you if they're trying to say you shouldn't hang out with people that aren't like-minded, that don't seem very wise, that are worldly. Well, if you grab your Strong's or Blue Letter Bible and you dive into the words of that scripture, companion there breaks down to the word in Hebrew, ra'ah, which is to pasture, to tend, to graze, to feed. So in my perspective of reading that definition of that word and the root of it, to understand that, where it's talking about a companion of fools is somebody that goes out there and to feed, to graze, to pasture. That's basically like you're out there helping them feed their foolishness. So if you are out there helping people be foolish, then yes, there's going to be some stupid stuff that happens to your life. You'll seek harm, or you will suffer harm, not physically necessarily, unless they're the dangerous kind of fools, or mostly it's just going to be like some mental harm, sanity, peace of mind, clarity of mind, things like that. So from there, you will also, and this is just kind of defending the topic of hanging out with people that aren't like-minded, find those people. I'm not saying hang out with every single person and whatnot, but remember, it's going back to seeking good fruit, people that are bringing out good fruit. So take those people and forgot where my brain was going. Decide from those people who you're going to hang out with, who you're going to seek wisdom from. Don't hang out with completely insane people. Don't feed into that habit of what they're doing, but listen to them for the good things that they bear. Other people will tell you that if anybody is of the world, that you're not supposed to hang out with them, and they will throw out scripture references like, let's see, I have it written down. Let's say 1 Corinthians 5:11. That it says, "But now I'm writing you not to associate with anyone who claims to be a believer, who is sexually immoral or greedy or an idolater or verbally abusive or a drunkard or a swindler. Do not even eat with such a person." People often get that scripture confused and use it against hanging out with anybody or associating with people that are of the world, because in some of these it will say, do not even associate with anyone who is a brother who is sexually immoral or greedy. Well, you look into different translations, you pull out your Strong's Concordance, and it's not just a brother, but it's somebody that is like-minded. So you don't want to hang out with people that are like-minded, that are sexually immoral or greedy or an idolater. Obviously, they're failing somewhere. So you don't want that influence in your life. That's the only people that God constantly tells us to break ties with and step away from in a relationship, seeking counsel or any sort of advice from. And then there's another, let's see, just to build upon that, if we go back from 1 Corinthians 5:11 to 1 Corinthians 5:10, he says, I did not mean the immoral people of this world, or the greedy, or the swindler, or the idolaters. Otherwise, you would have had to leave the world. It's like you can't, in all reality, not eat with somebody and have somebody over that isn't worldly, that isn't failing in one of those areas. We can try. They're not going to know 100% to not do some of these things because they're of the world. They haven't learned the scriptural references of how to up and keep these certain commandments to be better people. Sexually immoral sin is a huge thing amongst people that aren't believers, that are just people of the world. People that live together before marriage. That's a very common. I knew so many people before I became more involved in the ministry or my movement and trying to strengthen my faith, that were people that lived together before marriage. I've known people that were Christians that did that, but then again, that's people that you don't want to associate and seek wisdom from, because that's breaking commandments. That's doing things that will not bring blessings and not bear good fruit. Instead, it'll bring curses upon you. Another scripture that they might throw at you is Numbers 20. Numbers. Let me see. I believe it's Numbers like 16:23. I will have it in the description after this video. The right one that I'm talking about, but it's the one talking about Korah. And people will submit a verse that talks about you're not supposed to dwell in the tents of those people or hang out with those people. I'm talking about Korah. Yes, Korah was bad, but why was Korah bad? Because they were part of the brotherhood, because they were a part of the generations of Israel. Korah was the grandson of Kohath, of the lineage of Levi. And the other tribes that went in with Korah were tribes that were from Reuben. So they have a tie-in. Yet again, it's believers that are doing things that are not scripturally sound, that don't bring blessings, don't bring good fruit, they bring curses. So don't let people give you advice about not fellowshipping or not having somebody over for dinner and hanging out with people that are of the world, that are breaking the commandments. It's like they don't understand that they're breaking the commandments because they don't believe that they are under the commandments of God. Another thing that I want to make a comment on is there is a common saying that is, surround yourself with positive people. And I think this is a phrase that tends to infect our minds in a very negative way, because we're constantly out seeking people that are positive, and we have those people in our lives that are negative or doubtful about life, and so they just kind of have a pessimistic attitude about them. Well, our friends that are pessimistic, maybe they need the positive friend. Maybe you're the positive friend. Realize that it's not always about you needing to have nothing but positivity around your life, because it's unrealistic to think that you can have nothing but positive people around your life. Unfortunately, we're in a world right now where that's just not very likely. So you have to realize that it's not always about you being surrounded with positivity, but sometimes it's about you being the positivity. Sometimes it's about being the person in the friend group, or you and another person sitting, chatting, having coffee, sharing a beer, even, because to be honest, if you go out and you have a beer, there's going to be, if it's with somebody of the world, that's where they're going to be the most vulnerable. It's where they're going to be most honest, at least in my experience. So you're sitting there and they start talking negative. Maybe the reason it keeps happening is they're waiting for you to help build them up. And I know sometimes it can seem tiring because you'll have those friends that no matter what you say are constantly saying negative stuff. But I've seen it a couple times. I've heard from friends that they were the positive friend for their other friend for many years. And then finally one day it clicked, and that friend came up to them and said, I have to thank you for always being a positive influence in my life. That no matter how bad I felt, you were always there for me. You were always willing to pick me up, no matter if I called you a billion times. So people need that in their lives. They need that positive relationship. And sometimes that's you. So don't, to kind of go back over everything before I get to my last section and wrap up here pretty quick, is so we want our first group of counsel in life to be those that are scriptural, those that are spiritual, those that can keep us spiritually on track and give us good, sound advice that we can trace back to the Bible and continue to grow. The other people that we want to keep in our lives are the people that bear good fruit that maybe aren't of our fellowship or of our area of belief. But as long as they're producing good fruit, I'm not going to say if somebody is out there destroying everything and producing bad fruit that you should hang out with them, because that kind of falls along the lines of any believers that go out and make and produce bad fruit. It's just not something that's healthy. But yet again, you're going to realize that there's a struggle with that concept because sometimes you are the positive person. So you're going to have to get to a spot where people come to you to seek that positive, good fruit. And just understanding that that relationship is how that relationship is will make you have a lot easier time understanding hanging around those people, instead of feeling like, oh, they're just constantly negative and I feel so down every time I talk to them. Instead, you'll get lifted up in the fact that you can be that positive influence for them like somebody else is for you. You're just paying it forward, all that sound advice that people are giving you. Usually you'll end up speaking either scripture, hopefully something that ties into scripture, or you'll be speaking another person's sound advice that you heard and just becoming nothing but pure, great, fruit-bearing sound advice. But obviously, the absolute best way to make sure that you have the best counsel is to get counsel from the Lord. Make sure that he is actually your number one. I went in a weird order, but this is your number one counsel, of course. Anything that you hear from anyone else in the world, whether it's a believer or just somebody else in the world, make sure that when you take the time to go back home and have your quiet time, that you talk to the Lord and get your advice from him. Make sure that when you're in touch with him and you're talking about something that has happened, that your heart and your soul, your mind, everything, that once you brought it to him either says, yes, this is of me, or this isn't of me and it needs to be gotten away of, or gotten away from. Sorry, English. So number one, God, have him up there. Number two, I'd say anybody that's in our spiritual group, or not in our spiritual group per se, like I was saying, not necessarily of the same biblical mindset understanding, but maybe somebody else that also reads from the same scriptures that we do. And then after that would be anybody that just is of the world but produces good fruit. See what else I might not have touched on here in my notes. I think I've touched on everything. I see a couple people are on. Is there any questions that anybody has that I might have sparked up at this time from this conversation? I feel like I kind of rambled on a little bit too much. So I have my chat open over here on my phone. So if you have any questions, feel free for the next couple of minutes to put those in there and ask, and I'll see if I can answer those to the best of my ability. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. And I'm going to go ahead and say that next week's conversation is going to be about patience and understanding biblical patience. It is something that we all need to have, but it's another topic that I don't think personally I've heard said well enough. And with the God on my side, I hope that he is going to make me able to present that to you in all in a way that is of him. Let me see. I've got a comment here. Hi, Robin. Thank you for enjoying. I'm glad that you enjoyed it and that you thought it was good sound advice. This video will go up live right after this. So if there's anything that you want to kind of retrack on, please feel free to do that. I also leave my email and a link to my Facebook page underneath the description after the video has gone live. But it's TRVisionaries@gmail.com, or you can go to Facebook and look up TR or True Roots Visionaries, and my page is up there with it's like an orange and pink with just TRV as the icon for that. So you can always feel free to shoot me a message if there's anything on there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this video helps you understand a little bit more about counsel. If it is another topic that I need to like retouch on or anything like that, I plan on doing that kind of subject in the future. So please feel free to shoot me some emails about that. And I pray that you will join me next time as we learn more about biblical patience. Shalom, everybody, and have a great week.